Hello and welcome to the webinar, How to Use Edge Connectivity to Modernize Access to Business Data. This special webinar event is presented in partnership with our friends at Access Security. Thank you so much to everyone out there in the Actual Tech Media audience for joining us on the webinar today. This is going to be a really cool event, cutting edge technology here from Access Security, helping you to improve your security posture, better defend your company's data. And before we get started, there are a few things, however, you should know about today's webinar. First off, I should mention my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. We want these events to be educational. Of course, we're all former IT professionals ourselves here at Actual Tech Media, and we know how tough it can be out there in the world of enterprise IT. And we want to help to solve, we want this event to help solve your technology challenges. So we encourage your questions there in the questions pane of your audience console. Many of you have already said hello or good morning, good afternoon from across the United States and around the world, but we also want your technical questions on today's topic. So keep those questions coming. We even have a best question prize to help encourage your questions. We will be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the webinar today. We also have a number of resources there in the handouts tab. I want to call your attention to, starting off with the link right on the top, which is a free trial to Access Security, which you can try out for yourself. You'll be learning about it, of course, on the webinar today. There's also a link to Access Security resources. There's a ton of great resources there. And then a link to 2 previous events that we've done with Access Security. This is the 3rd event in our series here, and I'll be talking more about those events here coming up in just a second. But first, I should mention that at the end of the webinar on the live event here, I'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. If you're watching this on demand, of course, like on our YouTube channel, the drawing has already occurred and the prize terms can be found right there in the handouts tab. And then, as I mentioned, we also have a best question prize for a $50 Amazon gift card for the person who asked the best question on the live event. That means you have to ask a question to be entered into the prize drawing, and then, of course, meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. And as I said, this is the 3rd event in the series. The first event we did here with Access Security was on how hybrid work killed VPN, a really cool event. You can find a link to that there in the handouts tab. And also the second event is found there in the handouts tab as well, and that is on how to power the business ecosystem through secure access. If you're on today's event and you didn't catch the 2 previous events, it's not required, of course, but it would be helpful to learn more about access security, and check out those events. So we encourage you to do that. And with that, it's now time to bring in today's expert presenter. I'm excited to welcome Mr. John Spiegel, Director of Strategy at Access Security. John, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation today and helping some people understand the transformation and the journey that you have to take to live in this new world, hopefully this soon post-pandemic world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know we all look forward to that. Well, I look forward to your presentation. Before we do that, I've got 3 questions for everyone out there in the audience. We want to get your feedback on today's topics. Specifically, the first one here is on whether or not your company is adopting hybrid work. What is your company's policy, or here in the near-term future, what is your plan regarding hybrid work? Perhaps you'll be primarily in the office, primarily remote, or yes, you plan to adopt hybrid work, or maybe you've already adopted hybrid work. And I see a good number of responses coming in already. We appreciate your feedback on this. I will share the results of this poll here in just a moment, and you can see how you stack up with your hundreds of IT peers who are on today's webinar. If you haven't answered one of these polls before, you just do it right there in the slides window. All right, so lots of good responses coming in here. I don't want to skew the results, but I'm betting it's going to be a hybrid world. I just shared out the results, and it looks like 44% said they've already adopted hybrid work. 30% said they're planning to adopt hybrid work. John, what's your take?
Yeah, this is pretty much in line with a lot of the studies I've been seeing out there in the industry. Price Cooper's Waterhouse had a study of executives recently, and it aligns a lot with what we're seeing here. Yeah, hybrid seems to be the wave of the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hybrid world. Excellent. Well, let's see. Second question on the screen. How likely are you to replace your VPN within the next 12 months? So, in the next year, not likely, likely, maybe you already tried to do it, but it didn't work out, or you already have a ZTNA service. John, do you want to elaborate on it when you say ZTNA? What should,
Yeah, essentially what it is it's a well, unfortunately an industry buzzword, but the primary idea is to keep your user or your device off the corporate network to somehow limit their access so they cannot see, say, the rest of the network. Really creating that one-to-one relationship between the device or the user and the application they're looking to access. So really reduces the attack surface, limits lateral movement, and can go a long way to increasing your security posture.
okay. Okay. Excellent. All right. Let me share the results of this one. And it looks like kind of a 50-50 split here between not likely and the other 50% who are likely, they failed, or they already have a zero trust access device in place or service in place. What do you think, John?
This is again very similar to what I've seen out in the industry. A lot of this comes down to priorities and where the IT leaders are looking to put their investments, and we'll talk a little bit about that during the presentation.
Nice, nice. All right. And then last question here in this series, and that is, what percentage of your business is third-party users, defined as suppliers, vendors, B2B, or customers? And when we say a part of your business, does that mean clients using the IT infrastructure, or you
Yeah,
know,
it could be a supplier, a third party, for instance, or contract work is very popular as well. Really, the thought here is that these are people who don't are not corporately badged employees. They're used for a particular service or leveraged in a short time, and a lot of times, the thought is you don't want to put these sort of people onto the network where they can see all the IT devices or see into the data center. Again, it's another method to reduce that attack surface and reduce your cyber risk.
got it. So anyone who doesn't work for your company but needs access to your data, really.
Temporary worker is a great example of this.
Right. Okay. So let me share the results of this one, and it looks like only 5% have zero. 36% said 1 to 25. 39% said 26 to 50. So real good percentages, kind of all around there, but concentrated mostly between 1 to 50. John, is this what you've seen?
Yeah, and again, this is very similar with the studies that I've seen out in the industry. We're seeing a lot more of these third-party use cases, at least in our industry, and that's one of the things that our company, Access Security, solves very well is this scenario. So this is good to see. I enjoy seeing that 25 to 50% and the 1 to 25. So it sounds about right.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm excited to learn about how to use edge connectivity to modernize access to your business data. John, take it away.
And David, thanks for the time. Yes. Hi, I'm John Spiegel. I've got about 25 years of experience running global networks and managing infrastructure. So I've sat in your chair. I've been the person making that hard decision at 2 a.m. in the morning during that extended outage. I've been the enterprise manager, the enterprise engineer, the team leader, And then finally, I ran all of infrastructure. That includes the networking, the security, the platforms, cloud, which I did at a global level for Columbia Sportswear. And when I was not putting out fires or hanging out in a budget meeting, which is always so much fun, I also spent some time advising at least several successful network startups, and then also had an opportunity to speak on many of my experiences in running infrastructure at several of the major industry conferences. And in my spare time, which honestly there isn't much of anymore, you can find me on the back roads of Oregon, embracing my passion for road cycling. So my point of view in terms of technology is it is like life. Technology is a cycle. And when you consider your approach to technology, I recommend you go with a life cycle approach. Every technology has a life, a birth, and a death. And take one I've spent a lot of time on, and this is the traditionally telco provided WAN. I'm actually one of those, I guess you would say, glass eating engineers who loves tough technologies like the wide area network and remote access technologies. But the WAN, it has its origins in the 60s with dial-up technology. It gained more adoption in the 70s with frame relay. And then it probably peaked in the 2000s with MPLS. But now it's dying a slow death due to technologies like SD-WAN. And if you're not already embracing SD-WAN, you're probably thinking about it. But I would argue that SD-WAN, which I call WAN 2.0, is already on the path to decline. Now, why is this? It really comes down to inserting security in this modern era of cloud is difficult. And added to that, what do you do with the remote worker or the hybrid worker? The original intent of these systems was never really designed to connect to cloud or to SaaS or to a PaaS instance in Azure. And again, where do you insert the security stack? It could be at the data center, it could be in the cloud, or it could be somewhere else. But all of these options come with trade-offs. And added to that, how does WAN 2.0 fit into what hopefully will soon be the post-pandemic world? I would argue that we need to rethink how we look at our WANs. A new approach is needed, which focuses on the requirements of the hybrid workforce as opposed to the fixed branch office. And this was the reason I joined Axis Security. So I want to start with this. Think about the first time you saw a Tesla. I remember mine. I was in San Francisco late at night with some friends. One of them owned a Tesla and gave me a ride home. It was honestly like riding in a spaceship. But Teslas were rare in 2014. And now they're commonplace. A similar pivot happened in transportation 120 years ago. So if I were to take you to New York City in 1905, and you would be standing on Fifth Avenue, this is what you would see. A street full of horse and buggy carriages carrying the masters of the Gilded Age around. But if we were to flip forward 8 years, the scene changes. A great pivot in history has occurred. The combustion engine revolution has started, and if you look really closely, there might be only one horse-drawn buggy in the street. To paraphrase the great 80s philosopher, Ferris Bueller, change happens pretty fast. And we too, right now, are living in one of those great pivots. The events of 2020 have changed the world in a number of ways. For us in the IT world, one of those major pivots is how we deliver IT services. Prior to the pandemic, the people in IT, us, were already under incredible stress to deliver to our customers. The business required key legacy systems to continue to operate while also investing in the future. Cloud, SaaS, placed demands on IT to move systems out of the data center. Security systems were already stretched to the limit by cyber attacks, and network technologies designed decades ago were being asked once again to level up. Then March 2020 hit. Already in overdrive, the IT industry was asked to move into hyperdrive. This devastating global event required the IT engineer to answer the bell, act heroically, save the business by creating a path forward for the business to operate remotely. And overnight, the companies responded. Some of them doubled down on existing tool sets, while others implemented new methods. But at the heart of it, the IT network, like other areas of the IT infrastructure space, is like a museum. While its purpose is clear to be the core enabler of data in motion, how it is built and operated and managed is based on a 30-year foundation of ever-growing complexity. As an example, consider the steps an employee must navigate to access an application. Let's take the case of Amy. Amy works in HR. She needs access to an employee database. And since she's working from home, she logs in to her laptop in the morning. She turns on her VPN. She traverses the internet. She passes through a firewall, connects to a VPN concentrator, navigates a DDoS defense system, is interrogated by the NAC system, works her way through an SSL decryptor, is checked by an IPS system, and then yet again interrogated by another firewall. She then logs on to a VDI jump box and is finally able to access her application. Amy had to run an IT gauntlet just to get her work done. And keep in mind, Amy's packets likely crossed 8 different security products from 8 different vendors. And on top of that, it is possible these 8 different products were not integrated in any way, and more often than not, are managed by different teams. This is one of the many exhibits at the IT Network Museum. And if we're to pan out to the journey of one employee to the entire network enterprise, we see another view. The pace of digital transformation is placing even greater stress on the traditional network. Originally built to deliver connectivity from the campus or the branch to the internal data center, the enterprise network is now being tasked with delivering not only to the internal data center, but to external locations. Examples could be an IaaS-loaded, IaaS 3-tier application hosted in Azure. It could be a serverless application in AWS. It could be an ML system in Google Cloud. And more often than not these days, it's a SaaS offering like Workday or Salesforce. I cannot stress this enough. Our IT networks were designed in the 90s to funnel data to a single data center. Here in 2022, these very same networks are now the core backbone for connecting to centers of data in just about every corner of the globe. Here's a few examples of some common technologies we used in our regular world right now with IT. Cloud workloads are often connected to the enterprise using site-to-site VPNs. This technology was born in 1996 by Microsoft. According to Gartner, in 2022, 70% of enterprises are still leveraging MPLS as their backbone to connect to remote offices. MPLS was developed in 1996 by Cisco and IBM. And not to be outdone, the first application-based firewall was designed in 1993, and it was known as the Gauntlet Firewall. So here we have technologies designed in the last century, and here we are in 2022, and just about everything has changed but this: how to deliver applications securely. And why is this a problem? Because by their very nature, how these networks have evolved, as well as the modern demands placed on them, how they are operated at a high cost and high overhead. The complexity built into today's enterprises results in them being brittle, prone to break, insecure, and as a result, expensive to operate and maintain. And in terms of security, the methods and solutions have resulted in large attack surfaces. And just because you have a large firewall, it does not reduce your attack surface. You must rethink how to secure the enterprise. And the WAN, by its very nature, is an open system. It places the user, your customer, directly on the network. It does not check for malware. It does not set privilege on the network. It treats everyone the same. And everyone, in most cases, has network access to every device. They can ping, they can port scan, they can basically see everything. This puts the enterprise at risk for lateral movement and thus advance persistent threats. We've all seen it in the news. Our networks are really a horse and buggy approach to a world built for cars. So what is to be done? To quote an IT VP I used to work with, let's not get ahead of ourselves and start solutioning. Let's focus on some requirements. And what are the requirements to deliver an application securely in 2022? Here's a few I've seen. The leaders of the business know they need to transform. They must adopt a digital strategy or die. And we've seen this too often. Well-known companies like Sears, Kodak, and Blockbuster have been killed by digital Darwinism. They did not understand the nature of the game has changed. What this means is IT can no longer afford to be the team in the basement. They must now be the core enabler of the business. As a result, the CXO is looking to modernize the IT estate. They are asking hard questions about portfolios to create maximum cycles for projects that grow the business. Revenue generating versus keep the lights on is the debate in the boardroom. And you can hear this recently if you were listening to Jamie Dimon's Q4 2021 earnings call. During the call, he talks about the concept of core and context as he reviews IT investments made by JP Morgan Chase. And if you've not heard of this concept, it is an approach to determine what is core to the business and what is context. And by core, I mean what it creates a differentiator or is seen as a competitive advantage. An example could be a retail company, which has an internally created product development tool. For them, it aligns with their internal processes. They have a core solid team that supports the system. This is not something they can leverage from a third party. It's been created and exists based on the unique requirements for how they run their business. Context, on the other hand, are solutions which are commodity-based. Examples could be email, video conferencing, CRMs. These are areas where the business leader is looking to offload IT work. They are transitioning these systems to SaaS. Microsoft O365 and Salesforce are great examples of this. The CIO can eliminate, say, 100 to 150 servers from the data center. It unburdens the IT team from the care and feeding of these systems. It reduces their KTLO, or keep the lights on load. Resources can then be reallocated to projects which grow the business. So this is requirement number one. The new solution must reduce the overhead associated with IT. It cannot add to the KTLO burden. Rather, it must reduce it. Which leads to requirement number two. The new solution must operate at a lower cost. It must not create the friction of the past while also reducing risk. I know there's an old saying about if you have three options, you can only pick two. But this is what the modern IT leader is being asked. The modern workplace is highly competitive. And as more applications are commoditized, the barrier for entry for the competition is lowered. You need to keep up. As a result, the demand increases for the business leader to leverage new tools. And we see this almost daily in the form of shadow IT. If the modern IT leader does not provide, the user base will find a way. The main point here is the delivery of these applications needs to be fast. It needs to operate at a low cost, and it must delight the internal customer. That is your employees. The next item is critical. Today's networks are built with topologies first and foremost. It's a fixed approach, which is in opposition to the needs of the digital enterprise. What the digital enterprise values is speed, malleability, agility. Remember, life moves pretty fast. A better approach is to focus on policy. Program the network to respond to the needs of the application. If needed, add more bandwidth. Program QoS dynamically. Respond independently when an application is moved from one data center to another. Network topology, on the other hand, should focus on high speed. And network policy should be leveraged to create a business outcome. The last item is the ability to work from anywhere. Price Waterhouse and Coopers did a survey of executives in the fall of 2021. Only 19 of them responded that their future workforce would be in person. So it pretty much aligns with the survey question. That means that 80% of these leaders are focused on creating conditions for the hybrid workforce. But unfortunately, how we deliver solutions to these workers has not caught up. Well, the pandemic has certainly drove demand in this area. What we've ended up with are solutions from the 90s. Remote VPN is still the dominant tool. And right after the pandemic started, a CIO famously said, overnight, the number of branches his team had to manage went from 100 to 10,000. We cannot manage our workforce like remote branches. We need a new approach. So what would that new approach look like? If we were to take a stab at what the future tool for delivering applications looks like, what would it be? The world I would design for would be simple and secure. And simple is not a word used in today's technology. We've built a foundation of complex, hard to understand solutions. We then doubled down with sheet metal boxes, which are difficult to manage and challenging to upgrade at times. Innovation, as a result, lives in the slow lane. My recommendation here is to look at software. Software, unlike hardware, is easily upgradable. It can be built upon. It can be expanded upon. The cycle of innovation is fast. You're not limited by the size of a memory chip or a TCAM table. Software-defined solutions are the path forward. Secondly, we need to remove the racks and racks of sheet metal boxes out of our campus and branch locations. Devices today delivered as appliances from one of several vendors must be transitioned to software assets, which exist in the cloud. They are expensive, they are hard to upgrade, and the innovation cycle is slow. And most of all, the management effort is high and the solutions don't interoperate. Third, I know this one sounds crazy, but we must look to the internet cafe as our topology of the future. The simple cafe offers two things: simple access and fast transport to the internet. That's it. Think about it. More than 80% of our traffic at the branch or campus office is being sent out off-site. And added to that, the majority of applications a business leverages in one day are internet-based. So why are we adding complexity to an already complex system? The focus should be on simplicity, not complexity. And fourth, I'll say it again, let's focus on policy to describe how the network will operate. Moving to a policy-based model moves networking into the sphere of delivering business outcomes versus being a business blocker. So let's stop talking about topologies. We just need to make our topologies fast and simple. And finally, let's discuss the elephant in the room: zero trust networking and the software-defined perimeter. Based on all the high-profile cyber attacks in the news, you'd think we'd be a little further along in implementing these approaches to security. But the problem is, until recently, doing so was difficult. And consider the number of methods out there: device trust ZTNA, session-based ZTNA, microsegmentation-based ZTNA, and these are just a few of them. Added to that, the confusing marketing surrounding ZTNA. Every security vendor out there is pitching their product as some sort of derivative of ZTNA. Now, all that said, zero trust approach is the correct one. The future solution should be about connecting a user to an application. That's it. They should not see the other devices on the network. It's just a one-to-one relationship, user to application. So where does that leave us? Well, before we get to the promised land, I need to offer a word of caution. On the journey forward, you will encounter challenges. Now, I wish I could tell you that the journey to network transformation nirvana is easy, but I'm sorry to burst your bubble. The journey will be challenging and it will be hard to undertake. That said, I will provide some sunshine before I provide the gloom. The technology is not likely to be a barrier to success. The technology works, and it works well. The issue, rather, will be the humans and the structures we've built to manage IT. Now, we've all encountered the IT silo. Different teams manage different stacks of technology. And in the past, the structure worked. It had value. In today's world, in my humble opinion, it is the great killer of IT projects and the adoption of new technologies. So before you start your journey of network transformation, please spend time aligning your teams, which will be involved in the project. Top of mind include the network team, the security team, the platform team, as well as key application stakeholders. Another key component is your operations team. Please involve them early on. The intent here is to reduce the friction, which will result during the project. Trust me, it will happen. Deal with it early and avoid being the project that dies due to people silos. Another area to give your attention to is your technology investments. Make an inventory of all your vendor contracts that you have existing. Understand dates when depreciation ends and when key dates for support, as this type of project often replaces a number of your network and security solutions. You want to determine how it will impact your company's numbers. Will it provide an offset to cover the cost of the new solution? Will the existing investment cause your finance team grief? Once again, it's best to get ahead of the problem early on. So now that we have that out of the way, let's move on to the Secure Service Edge. The Secure Service Edge, based on the needs of the post-pandemic world, the Secure Service Edge is the remote networking and security future. It is about delivering secured applications to anywhere, to any device, at any time. It takes the core tenets of SASE and moves the industry forward based on today's requirements. Transportation is agnostic. Delivery can be over the internet, Wi-Fi, MPLS, 5G, or even a simple cable modem. The solution is cloud delivered, and a service broker will provide termination, as well as security and telemetry. In your application, it can be anywhere. It could be a legacy application in a corporate data center. It could be one of those 3-tier IaaS built applications in Azure, or it could be a simple SaaS application. They can all be easily delivered, securely, and importantly, with telemetry to understand how that application is performing or not performing. So how does Axis provide this service? Axis is a cloud-delivered service. We're agnostically built on AWS, GCP, and just recently added Oracle Cloud. Our platform is cloud-based, and it can adapt to your current and future needs. And no hardware is needed. Our service starts with a zero trust foundation, which means no pass-through connections are allowed. It is user to application, one-to-one. And the user first must pass a series of checks before being allowed to access an application. And additionally, we monitor the state of the user and the device during the session. If there's a negative event, the connection will be terminated at that very moment. Also, as we sit in the middle of the session, we can offer deep analytics about how that application is used, how it was accessed, and even in the case of an RDP connection, we can offer screen scrapes. This is super valuable in a third-party use case. We support both agent and agentless scenarios, and in fact, we started off as an agentless service. So let's take a moment and review how Axis works. There's really 5 key steps. First, the user requests access to an application. The Axis Cloud then mediates that initial connection. And this is the key to zero trust. There's no pass-through connections allowed. We then first verify the identity of the user and validate the access based on policy. We look at user identity, device health, application type, and even a user's location. The service then brokers a one-to-one outbound connection between the specific resource and an authorized user. This is done without network access. And then throughout the session, Axis inspects the traffic. If an IP address changes or a user is removed from an IDP or a device posture check fails, the connection is terminated immediately. Now, Axis is built on a solid foundation. It is cloud native with a microservices architecture. This is key as we can add new features and maintain a single pass method. This is unlike our heritage peers in the industry. They've adopted a portfolio approach versus a platform approach. While they may tout their platform, when you pull back the curtain, you'll find that they likely acquired their way to that platform. As a result, there are many panes of administration. There could be one for remote access, one for firewalls, one's for SWIGs. In our case, we've come to this game late. We're a second mover, and that has benefits. This means we can offer a true single pane of administration. We can accomplish in 6 clicks what our peers do in 17 or more. We also work the details. We look deeper and even go down to the level of the networking side. One of the advantages is we don't use IPsec VPNs. A quick bit of trivia on IPsec. The IPsec code base has upwards of 70,000 lines of code. Now, to me, those 70,000 lines of code are really 70,000 opportunities to exploit. And we all know that IPsec has had a number of them. At Axis, we take a more modern approach. We're leveraging WireGuard. Now, WireGuard only has 4,000 lines of code. It is more advanced, has better key exchanges, and is almost 3 times faster than IPsec. And I'll give you one more advantage, the ability to spin up multi-tenants. In a scenario where a company has multiple brands or is going through a merger and acquisition, the option for multi-tenancy is powerful. And unlike our peers in the industry, where we can spin up a tenant in less than the time it takes you to take a sip of coffee. Since our platform is built on a modern, cloud-based microservices architecture, that process is fast and scales almost infinitely. We're not shipping hardware to a data center. We're not spinning up multiple VMs. It's as simple as name the tenant, assign the authority, and click OK. It's that simple. We also offer greater visibility as we sit in the middle of a connection. We can offer user experience telemetry, and since we're built as a service, cloud provided, we have the advantage of over 350 global POPs, as well as the backbone acceleration services of AWS and GCP. Now, I mentioned a few times that platforms matter, and they absolutely do. When it comes to delivering applications, they do. At Axis, we sit at the intersection of your network, your security, and most importantly, your user experience. If the service doesn't deliver, the business will come to a stop. That is why in your journey to transformation, you need to take a deep look under the covers. You need to ask how the platform is built. Questions to ask. Is the platform modern? Can it easily operate on multiple clouds? What is required on-prem? Is the platform built on a single pass architecture which will allow your applications to access services like SWIG, CASB, digital experience? Or are these separate services requiring additional treatments? It's good to take a deep dive and walk the path of a packet through the platform. Ask for the diagrams. Do the deep dive. Ask the hard questions. So, how do you start your journey? As I said previously, moving to a secure service edge delivered service will take time. And depending on the level of complexity in your network, it could be a significant endeavor. So my recommendation is to start on the edges. A great use case I've often seen is third-party access or mergers and acquisitions. Both of these use cases put strain on the network team or open up significant security risks. And it shouldn't be this way. Axis can make that solution simple. We provide a clientless approach, and our technology will easily work around duplicate IP address scenarios, which often come up during mergers and acquisitions. The next area is remote access or VPN replacement. This is our bread and butter. We provide a ZTNA approach, which will greatly reduce your available attack surface, as well as simplify remote access. And additionally, since we're built on the major cloud providers, you can take advantage of our global backbones, as well as network acceleration programs to deliver your applications faster delight your customers. Lastly, you can go all in and leverage access across the entire enterprise. Benefits here include simplification of internal networks, reduction of third-party on-premise security services. Think about those SSL terminators, those load balancers that Amy had to go through. You can also reduce your costs and reduce the number of vendors you have to manage. You can simplify your network topology and refocus your IT teams on projects that generate business value. I also think it's important to show the value of access from a financial standpoint. One of our customers came to us to overhaul their remote access solution. This was a third-party use case. In their original state, they had a combination of VDI and laptops. The cost per month for them ranged anywhere from $25 to $200. By migrating their services over to Access, the company could now move to a BYOD method with their contractors and third-party users. The result, the company is now operating at a $5 to $10 per month model. And not only that, they've taken their third-party employees, their non-employees, off the network, greatly reducing their attack surface and increasing the visibility of how these third-party workers are using the application. This has also increased productivity through a simple provisioning system, and now their end-user compute team has more time to focus on their next challenge of making Access their enterprise solution. This also had one other benefit. The company is now saving almost $10 million annually by making the move to Access. And as we come to the end of this presentation, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways. First, as you consider your transformation from a network perspective, start to think less about topologies and rather look at your network at a policy level. You need to move a layer up. Think about how you can program your network to achieve a business outcome and stop creating complexity. Your network and security systems are already complex enough. You don't need to add to it. And turn your branches into simple network cafes. Make it as easy as a Starbucks to gain access, and then layer on the Secure Service Edge Cloud to secure the delivery of your applications. Leverage a cloud-delivered ZTNA method to take your users and devices off the network. Reduce your risk profile while also speeding up the delivery of your critical applications. And second, while you may start your project as a targeted response to a business need, say solving a third-party access issue, don't shortchange yourself. Think bigger. Solutions like Access can go deeper and solve many of the issues at the intersection of networking and security. Think about the number of vendors and solutions in your IT estate. How can you make your application delivery mechanisms easier? How can you reduce the overhead, the cost, the complexity, while also making life better for the employees of your company? So don't forget to think bigger. Also know that transformation does not happen overnight. There's no easy button, so do the hard work up front. Know the dreaded IT silo can kill a project faster than any bad technology. And next, here's one I've learned the hard way several times. Understand the costs of your current solution. Also, it is critical to dive into the project. Take time to understand the hard and soft dollar numbers. Then as your project moves forward, also take the time to understand if your new solution provides a positive return on investment. Again, what are the hard and soft dollar numbers? Knowing these numbers will go a long way to fast track your project with both senior executives and your finance team. And lastly, once you have your team formed and a short list of vendors, do the due diligence. Ask about the platform. How is it built? Walk the path of a packet through their services. What is the path it takes as it moves from service to service? Is it a single pass architecture? Remember, your platforms matter. And remember the photo from the 20th century. In the span of 8 short years, how people moved their goods, their services, and themselves changed forever. This revolution of the combustion engine changed the world we live in. But technology moves forward. The all-electric car is now the standard. Our world is being remade once again. And the same is true for how we will deliver applications in the future. And gone will be the days when Amy and HR had to pass through 8 different security solutions and 8 different network products to be granted access to a simple HR database. The future is about Amy being granted secure access to the HR database from anywhere at any time on any device without being placed on the network. Simple, fast, and secure access delivered from the cloud. And I'll leave you with this. To paraphrase the great philosopher from the 80s, technology moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around at new solutions, you will miss out. Thank you for your time.
Great presentation, John. Really, really helpful stuff. I know out here for so many companies, we did the polls at the start. So many companies are moving to a hybrid work model. So many companies out there need to replace their aging VPN, modernize their access solutions. And so this is a great presentation and excellent information here. We've got a lot of great questions coming in from the audience. If you have a question about this, now's the time to get it in because we're going to kick off our Q&A right now. First question for you, John, comes from Ian, who says, how do we streamline user credentials with these access systems, especially if the cloud tech changes, say from Azure or from AWS to Azure to Google, etc.?
Really, it's about taking a single sign-on approach. So looking at Azure AD, looking at Okta, Ping, these sorts of models, and leveraging them. It's a process that unfortunately will take a lot of time. It's one that I was involved with at my previous company, and it will take time. But the best recommendation I can provide to you is standardize on an SSO model. It could be Okta, it could be Azure AD, but really look at your requirements and see what fits best for you. I've seen a lot of Microsoft shops, it's Azure AD, but then there are a few companies that are more agnostic about their cloud, and they'll move to like an Okta model. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, excellent. And then let's see, Ned is asking, is it true that Access Security's security service edge platform manages over 350 access cloud edges? If so, how secure, reliable, and efficient is your solution to both process and protect sensitive IT business data? What about the security and sensitivity about this? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we have to pass a number of certifications. And we're currently undergoing FedRAMP, so that's a very strict and stringent process. So the security is already built in there. We also have that second mover advantage, I guess you would say, that we've seen where our peers in this space have had some challenges, and we're able to work around that. So it is secure. And then in terms of the POPs, we're leveraging Google, we're leveraging AWS, and a few other cloud providers as well to make sure that we're highly secure. So we're partnering with them.
Smart, yeah, very nice. Let's see, here's another good one. They say you hammered and nailed zero trust network access, emphasizing secure remote access to organizations, apps, data, and services. How does Access Connector work with hybrid IT platforms? Is it based on a clearly defined access control policy compared to IPsec or VPN applications?
Yeah, so really how it works is in let's call it a private data center. What we'll do is we will drop a small piece of software in there. It's all container-based, runs on a Linux platform, and that is our connector. So that connector will reside on your network, and it will create that outbound connection. So we're not opening up a hole in your firewall. We're not driving IPsec through from a inbound. It is completely outbound. That connector will live in that data center, and it will broker the connectivity from, say, a user or a cloud. And that's how we're doing it. Is really, it's a small piece of software. It resides in your data center, and much better approach than some of the solutions from the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Here's another interesting one. They want to know, what are the top action items I can take to prepare, my IT organization for Secure Service Edge?
Really, it's in terms of your organization, my number one recommendation is to look at how your organization is structured. Um, I mentioned it in the presentation that I believe that the IT silo structure is the great killer of innovation and new technologies within an organization. So you really need to focus there. Make sure you have alignment amongst those teams. Make sure that the networking team is on board with the security team, because that's where a lot of the contention happens, because we're bleeding technologies that used to in the past be separate, and that tends to be an area where I would focus on the most. So, if possible, lean out the organization, put it under a single resource that will bring people together as opposed to drive them apart. So, unfortunately, it comes down to relationships. So do what you can to broker those positive relationships between teams, and start to break down those IT silos. That's the number one thing.
Wise advice. Very nice. Let's see. Another question. Are there risks with zero trust network access blowing up VPNs on users' personal devices without their knowledge?
I don't think so. So in a user's own device, my recommendation, let's call it a BYOD scenario, is to go with a clientless approach. So don't put a client piece of software on there. Uh, I've seen that the majority of applications that a third party will need to access, oftentimes we can do with a clientless approach. Whether that's RDP, SSH is another one that we do really well. Even legacy web-based applications, we do those extremely well. It's in those some of those difficult scenarios where you have a legacy application that we require that, or recommend you having client software on there. But in a BYOD situation, try to do as much clientless, and that way you're not going to get into a situation where you're having an interop issue with a VPN style software on a laptop or somebody's home device.
Absolutely. All right. Well, looks like we've covered all the questions that have come in, and we're running out of time here in our webinar presentation slot. So, last question I wanted to ask you, John, before we go is, what should folks do to get started with access security? I know there's a link to the free trial there in the handouts.
Absolutely.
We also have the
Yeah. So,
resources link. Go ahead.
yeah. The best thing to do, I'm going to give you two recommendations. First one is, hit up our website, take our 29-minute challenge, give the technology a whirl, find out how easy it is to deploy, manage, work with. I think you'll be very surprised. The second thing is, Access is now the sponsor for an organization called the Secure Service Edge Forum, or the SSE Forum. And the idea behind that is to bring in, I guess you would say, the best and brightest minds of the industry, and that could be a security person, a CIO, a CISO, even a networking engineer, and put them together on a forum. That team meets monthly and discuss what are the barriers to adopting this technology, or where is this technology going. Um, Follow that. I believe it's the sseforum.io. If you have any questions, or hit me up on LinkedIn, or hit our website. That's going to be an excellent forum, an excellent method of getting information on where this technology is going. So Access is just one of the major sponsors there, but again, it's driven by practitioners. It's Access is just sponsoring it. Again, it's all practitioner driven. We're trying to not involve the vendors, and keep it at the engineer, the CIO, the people who are actually doing the work level.
Absolutely. Yeah, those sound like some great opportunities to learn more and try this out and get involved. John, it's been really great having you on the webinar today. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for the time, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate it.
And before we go, I do want to remind everyone as well about the two webinar links that are there in your handouts tab. These are the two previous events we've done in this series with Access Security. The first one is How Hybrid Work Killed VPN. And the second event was How to Power the Business Ecosystem Through Secure Access. If you didn't get a chance to join those events, we encourage you to check those out. Again, the links are there in the handouts tab. And then after the event, you'll be automatically redirected to the Access Security Resources page. So make sure that you check that out for additional information on Access Security. And with that, I do want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. This is going to Jay Lucas from Arkansas. Congratulations. And we will reach out to our Best Question Prize winner as well. Thank you to everyone who took time out of your day to join us on the webinar. I hope you learned a lot and have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.